video about how to win friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie. In this classic self-help book, Carnegie shares his insights on how to build positive relationships and effectively communicate with others. Chapter 1, Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. In Chapter 1, Carnegie lays out the fundamental techniques for handling people. He argues that the key to successful communication is to understand the other person's point of view and adjust your approach accordingly. Chapter 2, 6 Ways to Make People Like You. In Chapter 2, Carnegie shares 6 ways to make people like you. He argues that these simple strategies, such as being genuinely interested in others and smiling, can go a long way in building positive relationships. Chapter 3, How to Win People to Your Way of Thinking. Chapter 3 focuses on winning people over to your point of view. Carnegie argues that this can be achieved by understanding the other person's perspective, using evidence and logic, and avoiding arguments and confrontations. Chapter 4, Be a Good Listener. In Chapter 4, Carnegie emphasizes the importance of being a good listener. He explains that active listening is a key component of effective communication and provides tips for improving your listening skills. Chapter 5, Talk in Terms of the Other Person's Interests. Chapter 5 explores the concept of talking in terms of the other person's interests. Carnegie argues that this approach can make your conversations more engaging and effective, and provides practical tips for finding common ground with others. Chapter 6, A Simple Way to Make a Good First Impression. In Chapter 6, Carnegie shares a simple way to make a good first impression. He argues that first impressions are important and provides tips for putting your best foot forward and making a positive impact. Chapter 7, Show Respect for the Other Person's Opinions. In Chapter 7, Carnegie stresses the importance of showing respect for other people's opinions. He argues that this is essential for building positive relationships and provides tips for handling disagreements and maintaining respect in the face of differing viewpoints. Chapter 8, If You're Wrong, Admit It. In Chapter 8, Carnegie discusses the importance of admitting when you're wrong. He argues that being honest and admitting mistakes can help build trust and credibility in relationships, and provides practical tips for doing so. Chapter 9, A Drop of Honey. In Chapter 9, Carnegie shares the power of using a drop of honey when communicating with others. He argues that using flattery and praise can help build positive relationships and provides tips for using these techniques effectively. Chapter 10, The Secret of Socrates. In Chapter 10, Carnegie discusses the secret of Socrates, which is to ask questions instead of giving orders. He argues that this approach can help you influence others and build positive relationships, and provides tips for using this technique in your own communication. Chapter 11, A Formula for Gaining Any Desired Cooperation. In Chapter 11, Carnegie lays out a formula for gaining desired cooperation from others. He argues that by understanding the other person's needs and concerns, and by presenting your arguments in a way that meets those needs, you can effectively influence others and build positive relationships. Chapter 12, The Movies Do It. Books do it. Why don't you? In Chapter 12, Carnegie explores the power of storytelling as a tool for communication. He argues that using anecdotes and stories can help make your arguments more persuasive and memorable, and provides tips for using storytelling in your own communication. Chapter 13, An Appeal That Everybody Likes. In Chapter 13, Carnegie discusses the appeal that everybody likes, which is the appeal to the ego. He argues that by appealing to people's self-interest, you can influence their behavior and build positive relationships. Chapter 14, How to Get Cooperation from People. In Chapter 14, Carnegie provides practical tips for getting cooperation from others. He argues that by building rapport, showing empathy, and understanding the other person's needs, you can effectively influence others and build positive relationships. Chapter 15, A Sure Way of Making Enemies. In Chapter 15, Carnegie discusses the importance of avoiding certain behaviors that can make people your enemies. He argues that by avoiding things like criticism, complaining, and anger, you can maintain positive relationships and avoid conflict. Chapter 16, The Big Secret of Dealing with People. In Chapter 16, Carnegie shares the big secret of dealing with people, which is to make them feel important. He argues that by valuing others and showing respect for their opinions and ideas, you can build strong and positive relationships with anyone. Albo, so there you have it, a brief overview of some of the key principles and concepts covered in How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This classic self-help book provides practical advice and actionable steps for building positive relationships and effectively communicating with others. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this video informative.